Do you by any chance live with anyone that triggers you routinely? I got a question about that, and these are questions I typically avoid because it gets into this area I want to be careful to not get into, and that is giving personal advice. And what I'm doing is interpreting the material, talking about what the material teaches us to do to look for inner peace, and in somewhat what happens around us when that happens. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. And the question came from Stefan again after a video. And what I want to do is first let me read what his question is. This might sound familiar to some people. Okay, he's talking about a video at 12:35. I'll bring that up and sample that. How do you forgive someone, for example, with whom you live, and they give you annoying triggers on a daily basis? You see that and recognize it, and if you argue, the whole family could fall apart because of that one person who triggers you every day in different ways, and you're going this way. Could you mentally try not to grasp and not to judge, even if you see that person is like she or he knows what they're doing and still do it intentionally? In what way and how could that be done? How do you let that go when people are triggering you intentionally? Okay, boy, that's a tough one, and I want to make sure to caveat everything that I'm about to say here with, I'll tell you what my experience is. I'm not in any way, shape, or form making any recommendations. I think that's a very difficult thing, and everybody has to make this their own. And yeah, it's life-changing, but in at times when it benefits you, it detriments somebody else, because that's just what has to happen. And that's the way life works. And let me be clear about what I just said, that's not always the case. But there are times where you are really in a bad way and you're in a relationship with somebody that person depends on you, but that person is not really supporting, and it's like, we got a problem here. I'm going my separate way. That person might go, oh, this is a detriment to me. I need you in my life. Well, you need to be going, yeah, well, me in your life is a detriment to mine. So I have to make a decision. I'm moving ahead. You are holding me back. What are you going to do? Somebody in that case is going to be detrimented. Is it going to be you or them? And, continually understanding the complexity of this. You can sit there and say, this is the position I am in. This is what I would do. This is what I think you should do. When you're telling that person what you could do, from the other person's perspective, they may be able to follow you in kind. They may not be the breadwinner, the primary income source. They may have other roles where they go, you know what, I can't just take off on my own. I am so dependent upon this here. Thanks a lot. You're telling me I should leave something that is maybe not healthy, but the next step out of here is starvation and death. You cannot tell people what to do. They have to make their own decisions. We're trying to survive. We want to be happy. But if you're not happy, chances are you still want to survive. Not everybody does, but let's stay on our side of that right now. Okay, what I want to do is, again, I don't know the situation or specifically what it is, but what I do want to do is talk about my own experiences and what I have done to get where I have and where I've gotten to in life, to where I'm happy now. And it's been a lifelong road. It has. It didn't happen very quickly or recently. It's been a long path. I know now what to do, and I know a lot of things I did along the way that weren't on course, that were not getting where it wasn't a solid path the whole way. It was kind of in steps here and there. I am on my third marriage. I'll say that right up front. My first wife, actually, I was in the military. We were not at all, things were not okay, and we definitely went different directions. I was even stationed overseas and got a letter from her once saying that she was glad I was understanding because she got pregnant by somebody else and knew that I would accept the baby as my own. I was, of course, drinking heavily at that time, and that just you drink more. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be. No, it didn't work. It was not okay. We ended up going separate ways, and I was single for 8 years. I did finally remarry after going through some big changes. I was making big discoveries. I married in a completely different kind of a person at that point in time, and life was a lot different. And we had a child. She had a child, and I had, there were kids from previous marriages from both of us. I had a daughter that stayed with my first ex. My first ex, by the way, she actually deleted her Facebook account after that Trump fiasco in Washington. She didn't go into the Capitol, but she was on the grounds apparently and didn't want anybody to know what she was doing. She's married to an evangelical minister from Texas, and they give classes on how to have good marriages. When she and I divorced, she left somebody else and got pregnant on him too. The guy, I remember him saying, "I hated you, Dan," at one point in time until she did it to me too. Anyway, you know what? There's a point in time where life isn't okay in some cases. What are you doing? Who are you with? Are they growing? What are they doing? And I can say that where I am today, I would never have gotten here had I stayed with the first wife or the second wife. There's points where you are growing, you are a moving target. I am. I did not grow into something that I don't sit and watch TV at the end of the day when I came home from work. I didn't do things like that. I was always very active. I always wanted things a certain way. I was difficult to be with. To me, when it's time to eat dinner, I was a lot of times single, so dinner to me means this whole process of you're getting something to eat, you're preparing it, you get done. By the time you get done eating, you're washing the dishes, putting them in the rack at least. There's nothing, when you're done eating, there's nothing done. Living with other people that will put dishes in the sink or not clean things up or something I had a problem with that. I was very stuck with some kind of OCD things in my head. And I know that. I don't have them to that degree today. I mean, I still do that myself, but I allow other people to not. They can save their dishes until a later time. The sink doesn't get full of dirty dishes. To me, it's just like, same as with the laundry. When the laundry is done, when you wash the clothes, the laundry is done when the clothes are folded and put away, not when the dryer stops. You go, look, where are these? This shirt's been missing for a week. Oh, here it is. It's in the dryer. It's wrinkled and stinks, So I think all of us are that way. You go through points where people are like treating you like you got a problem and you're acting like, how come you can't get on board? We're broke. We're not making, what is the money being spent on? Where's it going? There's times in my life I looked at it and I realized I am not going to make it. I am not okay. I am not happy. I am changing. I am learning. I am growing. And what I got into is not good for me. As much as I loved it, as much as I fell into it, as much as it started one way, it didn't continue to be that way. What happened? I began to have cyclical pain and I had to struggle to leave the past behind. I stayed in bad relationships long beyond when I should have left, with some sort of guilt, sense of, I can't go, I made a commitment, I can't hold up my word. I was wrapped up in this not understanding that we're humans evolving, trying to get someplace, and we all need to work together to get there. If you're fine where you are, then stay with people that are like you. But if you're somebody that is moving through that and people aren't going with you, there's going to be problems, period. There will be struggles. Okay, having said that, I guess what I wanted to say there is there were times in my life where changes were so significant that things that could not remain on their current course. Divorces happened. There were irreconcilable differences. There was daily anger, fighting, just things that could not work out because of inability to accept each other the way. It's like I need a certain something that you can't provide and vice versa. That just began to be an issue that was going to stop us both from being happy. I look back on it and in both cases, they're happily married to someone that is more like them now. I am not that way. So it was a good for all around. It's just what happened. I can say that I know in both cases, long time before the relationship ended, I was thinking, I wish this was over. I wish it wasn't happening. I would think that for years. Putting up with something that it should have been, that's not healthy. I think certain people just get stuck in that modality. There's certain kind of people that have this sensitivity. You have so much empathy for other people. You don't want to hurt their feelings. At the same time, they're hurting you. And we get stuck accepting our own hurt instead of going, God, you know what? I'm sorry, but I need to be a better person. I will feel better and I will do better. When that doesn't happen, then you actually can start to decay. Instead of happy every day, you're getting triggered by something. Okay, now having said that, of course, getting triggered means we're bothered by something, but that can happen. I will tell you, in my current marriage, this is the good one. Yeah, I know where I am and I know where she is. She's not on the path with me, but she's very close to already being there to begin with. But that doesn't mean she didn't have issues. She came with children as well. And there was one boy that ended up being, a significant problem that we could not. She had actually come from an abusive situation, so she was for a lifetime conditioned to continue to protect the children, and the children were very conditioned to say yes, Dad, to whoever to their father, and then go behind his back and talk to her and do what they wanted to anyway. So that's what I was not aware of, and that was what happened. And my expectations were pretty normal. Like, you're going to high school. You have to get a passing grade. You don't have to get A's. You have to pass. Failure was constantly there, not as a not quite making it, but like work is not being done. Not any of it's done, like zeros. A little bit of class participation, but other than that, yeah, somebody just didn't want to do work. That it ended up being to where it was somebody in a situation that wanted to just not go to school, not do anything, hang out with their buddies, live life, play games, sit in their room. He actually began like getting tobacco and vaping in the house. And after I told him not to, he would do it anyway. It was like, okay, this is not the way I'm going to run my house or my life. This cannot be okay. I paid additional money to have him specially tutored and caught up. And then it turned right around and he just went right back into failure again. So it's like, oh my God, this is actually hurting the family unit. I'm retired now, have we got kind of minimal income here. I don't have money to throw around like that. So there's big things that start happening, and that ended up being something that we couldn't resolve in a very easy way. It ended up being a big blow up, and it ended up being the only way that it was going to work. I issued an ultimatum. He moves out of the house and we'll work to make things okay, or we will divorce and that will be a non-issue. All of you will be gone. That's where I was. It was like, I'm happy. I want to move ahead, but there's a situation here that is so broken. Even though we talk about it and I'm being told yes, I don't realize he's just acquiescing to. I just tell him yes, I shut him up. And then I go ask Mom, and then I go off and do what I wanted to anyway. After he told you, no, I won't do that. Okay, I won't go out. I'll stay and do my work. And then he's out and you're like, what happened? Oh, Mom said, you're like, okay. This can't keep going on. It was hurting. I have a bigger thing to look at. I'm not looking at my own life at this point. I'm looking at my life. What I have is my possessions that allows me to live through my older years, and what I'm going to have to do. Am I going to have to work? Can I retire? Can I take, there's things that I'm managing at that point that somebody comes in and suddenly that's off course. It's like, nope, you're not going to make it now. You're going to have to go back to work. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to have to be put up with noise at night. You're going to be having to put up with teenagers smoking in the garage and doing stuff like that. And you're like, nope, that is a no-go. I will not do that. I really made an ultimatum, and we got past that, and it worked out okay. He's out on his own where he should be. And it's like, yeah, you need to learn that life is not easy. And if your expectation is that somebody else is just going to take care of you while you do nothing, then you become a burden to the group's capacity to succeed. Groups work together to succeed, but when somebody emerges beyond that and the group won't go, you got to go on your own. The group's not going. We're emerging past that. This is all a part of the spiritual rising above the physical, letting go of all of that stuff and going, you know what? It's petty bullshit. I'm not living like that. I've got somewhere that I want to go and that I want to get and that I see something. And it's not about hurting people or taking. I mean, you have to look at what the motivation is here. We're looking for inner peace. I mean, if we're on board with that, right? Not success and riches and, the biggest mansion up on the hill, that kind of stuff. Those aren't the things that I go for. I'm just going for what is it that makes you happy. Everything else is fine if you're happy. Those things are just things. Doesn't mean you can't have them. It just means that they're just things. Happiness comes from being happy, and you know that by just sitting and being in your own head and making sure that everything in there is okay. The closets are all swept out. Okay, so how do you deal with it? I would still trigger. There were still things that would happen. Let me try to figure out how I might step into your realm without making any suggestions. And again, what I'm telling is what I did because of what I had to do for my own life. I'm not recommending anybody go get divorced, do anything like that, kick kids out. I'm not making any recommendations like that. I don't know what the situation is. I always made sure when things things were taken care of, I didn't just abandon and go. Sometimes you may have to. Yeah. When I first started out in life as a boy and I ran away from home, I grabbed my backpack and left. Here's what I want to say now. And this is really gets to the core motivation, I think. And I think not everybody's okay with hearing this, but this is how I see it. Humans are evolving millions of years ago. Look in society right now. How many people are alive and living lives because life is easy, because we can go to the store and get groceries, because we have a network. We don't have to hunt and forage. We've got clean water. We've got sewage. We've got textiles. We've got a system in place that we've emerged above that. But what would have happened in a group 2 million years ago where it's really a struggle to survive? There's people that are helping and there's people that are sitting around going, yeah, bring me some food. What do you think's going to happen? That person is going to be helping the group. You know why? That's who we're going to hobble up for lion food when we need to run. People like that aren't going to make it. You're sitting there today going, look, if you are waiting for people to take care of you, something is wrong. You're not somehow self-driven in this system, and I don't want you to be a part of my program. I'm going to be very dictatorial about that because I see something that the other people don't see. I'm going to go after what I can see, whether they can see it or not. I know there's something there. They don't need to be somehow, an ignorant lump that keeps me from my progress. That is a very tough way to put it. But at some point you're like, okay, yeah, we're humans and we're trying to get along, but for crying out loud, we're trying to advance and learn and do something and enjoy life. Don't be a detriment to the people around you. Don't make them have to work and lose their happiness in order for you to survive. And everybody else that's on this course, understand that there are people that are like that. And you need to know that, yeah, guess what? If you don't, what do? They find someone else to mooch off of. Unless they go, oh yeah, I get it. I need to be on my own. I was on my own as an early kid too, but I drove there to do it. I never expected anybody to take care of me. So there's just something different in minds that happened there. All right. As this is going on, the triggering that I have now, or that I had most recently, I don't right now. And I said my wife is not on course that I am, but she is understanding of what I'm doing. And she has been my sounding board when I needed a sounding board, even if she's like, I don't know what you're doing, but okay, that's fine. Yeah. Talk to me, because that's what I needed. So she's been absolutely the best possible thing. She's allowed me to heal, despite the fact that we have issues between us that we can't resolve. However, I can say that I've seen it enough and processed it enough to understand it, to work with it, and to realize I'm in the driver's seat with those things. If we trigger it, it's because I've allowed it to happen. She can still trigger. She won't interrupt it, but I can see what we trigger over. And it typically has to do with whether or not, you should teach children or allow children to learn on their own. I believe that there's certain parameters that you exist within, and that you let them do whatever they want to and let them make mistakes even, while you have control over it. But you don't let them run over you. You don't let them just get rid of the rules and say, I'm going to, do what I want. It's like, no, you can do what you want as long as you get this done and you get this done. There's certain rules of success. Anyway, that's just how I see life. So at some point, you're looking at things. You have to step out of the big picture. You have to look at everybody involved. Is that person impacting you? Are they impacting everybody? It sounds like if they're getting triggered and, doing something about it, there's something that's cyclically in place right there. What is the material? What are the first couple of steps after the called person before you cross the threshold? You're trying to cross the threshold right now, except you know what? You haven't escaped Pharaoh and Egypt. So the cycles of so the plagues are still happening, the cycles of pain, and Pharaoh is still chasing you as you're trying to get through the Red Sea. You haven't escaped the past, it sounds like, while you're trying to do that. You fit right on the template. Absolutely. Everybody does that's on this path. But that's what's happening right now. So you're working at trying to manage life that has there's certain qualities and things that we have we're no longer living on the savannah 2 million years ago. We live in a different structure now, but we need to learn how to manage that structure and manage the way that we live life, knowing that sometimes there will be people we may have to be responsible for. He was old enough to get out on his own. I could do that. If he wasn't, I wouldn't have been able to. So, there's times in life I had problems that it took years to resolve. And there's times where I realize how poor it is, how bad it is to continue to feel bad and practice feeling bad. I don't like to do that. I like to resolve things right away. I don't like things hanging over me anymore. I struggle being around people because you always try to make sure that there's nothing in the way there, and you're with people that always have that stuff up. And they think something's wrong with you because you talk about things that they're like, dude, what's the matter with you? We don't talk about stuff like that. I can remember times with my wife where we'd have a blow up and I would be thinking about it maybe a couple of days. And I'm going through this process and I'm realizing, okay, I triggered over this situation again. It has to do with adoption. It has to do with when I was adopted. I remember when, God, I must have been such a disappointment at times to John Paulson, and I wasn't one of his biological kids. And I would go through the personal feelings that I had from childhood that I needed to go through. And I would be healing and I would be thinking through that stuff. And sometimes we're driving down the street or driving down the road, just taking an afternoon drive. We do that a lot. And I would start apologizing. Sweetheart, I did this or I did that. And she would just launch right off and let me have it. And that would hurt my feelings. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I'm sitting here bearing my soul. I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to resolve something, and she doesn't understand, and all she's doing is digging right back at it. And at first, that's the way I take it, and it sounds right, doesn't it? Like, why doesn't she chill and let me try to apologize and do what I needed to do? And here's what I needed to learn, is that for a week, I've been going through this process of healing and working through and going into the past and resolving that and going, okay, this, and I did this to her and I feel bad. And I got, what kind of impact, cause and effect? But I work it through in my mind until I think I understand what I need to do to heal. Meanwhile, for the last week, she's been sitting there thinking, why the hell did he say that to me? And when I finally say something, she's getting her first opportunity to vent. And I need to learn to shut up and let her go through her part. I've been going through mine in my head for a week. She has not. She's mad still. I'm not anymore. I need to let her go through the steps that she has to go through. So I could recognize that happening and I could interact with that and I could see that was happening. And there's a point where I am early on, I still have an ego that's like, yeah, I'm right. I am right. Why should I back down? I am right. At some point you go, if you need to be right, you're wrong. If you need to be right like that, there's a problem. You just back off because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Or does it? I mean, if it's impacting you, and you have to resolve something, that's one thing. If it's just talking about something this is not a part of our life, it's just something we don't agree with, leave it alone. Learn to stay away from it. Learn to stop getting triggered by it. Learn that they think a certain different way because of what they've been through in life, that she's not being a bad mother. She's being a protective mother, and she's been doing that since they were little kids, and she's stuck in that modality. You got to understand that. I'm telling this to myself. So it's helping me understand the process of what's going on, how it's going that way, that he's been raised that way. In the same way somebody else is raised somewhere, they're conditioned that way. He needs to somehow get through that. Anyway, you know what? I feel like I'm getting off course. And actually, I realize I'm trying to tell you about my experience, my beliefs, my feelings. That whole spiritual idea that you just say, I love, I love, I love, I love. That there's this idea that we hear, and we like to hear it. I've heard it for a long time, and it made sense to begin with. I'm going to paraphrase. It's something, and I don't recall who said it, but it should sound familiar. That we are not we're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. That we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And actually, I believe that's the opposite. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. I believe we are physical creatures that are having a life experience, an emotional life experience, and that we would like it to be forever. We would like there to be something else, but that can help people hang on. So go ahead and do that. But if that doesn't work, the material is teaching us something different about going in, but it's also about leaving things. It's a tough call. Also remember, this is thousands of years ago. Their life is not like ours. They don't have a structure, a society like ours. It's just barely starting. No, the Greeks did pretty good, and the Romans had pretty good handle on things. But I mean, as far as infrastructure, power, things like that, they were doing things with irrigation and bringing water in, yeah. But it was all gravity flow and whatnot. So they're using this material at that time. Their lives are different. And are they trying to teach, if you follow this path through, if you follow Buddhism, you emerge what? As a Buddha. If you follow this through, then you emerge what? As a Christ. Does that mean mendicant monk-like? I don't know. I don't think so. But it certainly means that you have let go of things. And that means if along the way you are in situations where you're not allowed to let go of things, then you haven't escaped the past. You're still going to be experiencing the cyclical pain. I have one that I say, you can't dry off while you're standing in the rain. Sometimes you're in a bad situation you want to heal from that you can't heal from because somehow, some way it's not working. You want it to work. You need to make things work. You have to decide what works for you. It was always easy for me to go, I'm moving on. I'm fortunate. There are people out there who want to do this that cannot. And they have to come up with something different on their own and figure out how to resolve it. It's always a personal path. That's why the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. People telling you what to do is not what you need to do. You need to know and just do what you know is right. But you have to balance it against life. We're evolving. Nobody's going to be spiritual and seeking, meditation time when they're starving. We get the basic needs taken care of, and we want to grow up above that and emerge beyond that. You have to look at the things that are interfering and find ways of tweaking or deleting. For me, that's what I would do. But you have to balance it. There are things that you can't get rid of. You have to find ways of working with them. So we make that balance. In a case where somebody was intentionally doing it and knowing it, I don't know how I would deal with that. It would be difficult to is it an adult? Is it a kid? You can probably do some conditioning if it's a kid. If it's an adult, I don't know enough about it to even say there. That's the thing is that you are trying to emerge beyond something. You're understanding what to do, and you are at the same time understanding that you are experience something in life that is a detriment to that path. and that the pathway tells us that there will be very few that do it, that you need knowledge of what to do, that you're going to have to leave the past behind, that you're going to know to do it because there's going to be cyclical pain. Then you're going to have to cross the threshold and start healing things. You've crossed the threshold and are healing things while simultaneously the problems are still in place that are cyclical issues. And that's common. That's common. That's why we're there. That's what you're healing, the cyclical issues. So they're surfacing. It'll emerge. It'll be strong. It'll bother you. It'll be the worst thing. Whatever bothers you the worst is what you need to resolve first. Then you'll feel good. You'll be naked, unashamed in the tent, buzzed on a new experience in life. But then you'll get recovered again as something else emerges, and you go, okay, I got to take this path again and do something else. You're going to become Abram on the other side, and then it'll sequence that way. But for us, what that means is, just continually working on these things, but understanding what you're trying to do is somehow manage the things that are impeding you in such a way that they're not impeding you. Are they something that you can manipulate mentally in your experience, or are they something that you have to get away from? There are things that you can fix, and there's things that you have to leave. There's places we don't belong. That's why I don't love everything. There are some factions that are very hurtful and that are very ignorant, that are very accepting of supernatural, and that this is a temporary thing, which I feel to be incredibly irresponsible. And that's a huge chunk of humanity. So, boy, I don't know if that helped. I mean, you see, I'm not going to tell you anything too personal here. And let me think of what else. Yeah, it's just looking at it, the ego, watch the ego. If you need to be right, step back and ask yourself why. Keep stepping back and understand if somebody's getting mad, just understand that they're going through their thing. Don't get hooked into that. Let them go through their stuff without you reacting to it. At the same time, that always depends on what it is, right? If you're talking about, no, we've got a finance situation here, and this is something that is hurtful, it is intolerable, you don't have to, be accepting and let something like that go. We're really talking about issues that are not, they're impacting us because they come from the past, and we don't want them to be a part of our current life, but they are. We don't want them to be part of our future. Allowing them to go through theirs will eventually cause them to allow you to go through yours. It won't happen right away. They're going to be habituated. So you won't see the changes happen right away. You got to know that. You make changes and watch as the other person gradually realizes what's going on, and they decide to make changes themselves. Hopefully. If they don't, if they're that oblivious. I mean, my wife, despite not wanting to resolve those things and thinking that she's got issues with an ex that it's not my place. It's not mine. So there's more going there that I need to understand that is hurtful, that is hers to resolve. And if she's not going to, then it is going to impact us, because I see the cause and effect. Then that helps me understand what's going on and to understand it and to not take it personally and to get caught up in it, because I realize it's not about me. It's about something that happened before me. That's why she's with me, not him. So that's all good. But she still relies on me to understand more and to allow, it's odd. I'm not a control person. It might sound that way. I'm very controlling within parameters in a lifestyle. It's like, here's how the values, the morals, and the ethics of this group are. You need to match them at a minimum, or it's not going to be okay. There's certain standards that I live by, and I don't accept. Other people might live that way, but I don't. I go out here on my hikes, and I always have these plastic grocery bags, so I throw a couple of them in my pack. And when I'm out there along the trail, you find old beer cans or, shotgun shells or something like that. I'll pick the stuff up along the trail. There's not much of it. I haul it out. I'll go to other places that are these really pristine, beautiful places with rocks and real nice scenery that are wonderful to get to, and they're just shot the hell up. There's burned up pallets and screws and nails and spray paint on the beautiful rocks, and everything is shot up in glass and cans, and that there are people that just don't even care. That bothers me. I don't love that. I don't like people doing that. I look at this earth and go, you know what? This earth does not belong to us. We are here because of this earth. This is our life source. Its life gives us our life. And we shit on it. Well, not everybody. And then people get mad at you for even suggesting that we should take care of our planet. Yeah. But I love everybody. I don't. That's not right. And loving everything and loving everything and loving everything and loving everything isn't going to make that other thing go, okay, I'm going to convert to what you're doing. When it's overcrowded and resources are gone, they're going to demonize each other, and that's what's going to happen. And we don't recognize that that's the truth of humanity. So we're not going to deal with it. We're just going to watch it happen. When you're making decisions, I base all this stuff into my decision-making process at some point in time and go, this is my one opportunity to do something I think. If there's something beyond here, fine. But if not, then this is my one opportunity to accomplish something. And it's not maybe that important to many people, but to me it's important. I'm doing what I want to. Life is good. I'm not working. I got to where I wanted to get to. So, and you know what? I think that happened kind of randomly. And I'm glad that I got here. I didn't really have a goal. I mean, I did have a goal always that when I retired, I didn't want to have to work. I just, I knew that. So, I accomplished what I set out to accomplish. However, I had to make changes along the way that I know that if I didn't make, I would not have accomplished that. It required certain changes that I look back on now and realize, for whatever reason, I was slow to make those changes, but they happen when they happen. That's kind of a big picture thing, though, that one looks back at later on in life. For the moment, dealing with a situation where if I was in that situation, what I would have to say from an outside perspective, and that means that I can say that this logically, I'm not attached to it. Although if I was involved in it, I know I would have emotion and attachment to it. So I'm giving you what you would probably hear from your own mind if your emotions weren't involved in it, but you're caught up in it. You're experiencing it, and I'm not. You're standing in the rain. I am not. Okay. So there's a couple of options, and you said that the person is intentionally doing that, and I'm going to respond to that in two possible ways. Number one, assuming that they're intentionally doing it. And I'm also going to respond to it assuming or thinking that it's possible that you believe that they're intentionally doing it, but they're doing it out of some sort of a repetitive behavior, and that it isn't intentional. It's just ignorance and something that's happening that looks intentional. Because they do have to be looked at in different ways, and they're both possibilities. So we have to look at all the options that are there. So if the person is doing something to trigger me, number one, I'm being triggered by it. What is the trigger what is it? Is it something that is like a personal thing, like I was talking about with exes and other situations or things like that that needs to be left out? Or is it something that involves, you're hurting our food supply, our money supply. You're somehow hurting the family unit here in that action. So they're going to have to be handled differently. Is it intentional or non-intentional are still issues as well. But you have to look at what kind of an impact is it. Is it hurts my feelings, or it hurts the nature of the quality of our life in some way? Of course, it's going to, if it's hurting your feelings, it's hurting the quality of life. What I mean, does it step into the physical realm of now it's taking up too many resources or causing us to suffer or work additional or give up something else that is more important or something like that out of selfishness? Are we buying games instead of food, baby food or something, like that? What are priorities? Of course, if it's a family thing, it would become, today it would be intolerable, although there was a time I would have accepted debt, a time in life younger where I wasn't where I am today. It's been kind of a gradual process to get here, but it was important to get to a point where that wasn't happening. So it became very important for in the end of life to make sure you don't have debt throughout life, that you're paying off house and cars and things like that, that you're not, I mean, I was always okay with some basic stuff. I never needed anything fancy. So I was able to manage money elsewhere. And, it was because I enjoyed just being out and being solo by myself. For me, as long as I had a good Osprey backpack and some nice hiking boots and comfortable weatherproof clothing, whatever was appropriate, I was good. Which over a course of life is a pretty cheap requirements actually for having fun activities. Having outdoor garments and tent and things like that can get expensive, but not when you compare it to jet skis and boats and stuff like that. So not at all the same. So that made it anyway. Yeah. So finance was a big one because that's the way, that's how we hunt and forage, isn't it? The more you spend, the harder you have to hunt and forage to survive. If you want hunting and foraging to be easy, then you have to spend less and you have to prioritize and do different things. Yeah. All of that has to be managed. So if that's an issue, you got to handle it one way. If it's somebody that's just bringing in something from the past, then you've got to make the internal changes, what I would do then, because that person is coming from somewhere else, but you're fitting with it. So it's just this cycle that's going on. It's emerging for them intentionally or just because they're out of control and they just, even if they're saying, I want to do it again, they're still out of control. They're responding to something that they're not in control of. So they're not really doing it intentionally anyway. They're just acting out what they're wired as. There is no intention. There cannot be. Unless it's somebody that is very, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to cause this to happen, which is going to create that. That would be intention. If somebody's just doing that daily to get your goat, they're responding. And you're responding. So you're caught in a double response program there. And the only way to end that one, if you can't get away from it, is to cease being the other responder, while the person is still going to habitually come after you, and you're going to feel like, okay, I want to quit, but the person won't. I'll go right back into it. You have to know that that's going to happen and step back anyway, knowing that you put something else in place. What is better, to give into it and be that person, or to rise above it? Keep the goal in mind. You are to rise above the physical. And right now, the emotion and the anger is exactly how we evolve. That's exactly how we become part of the physical and survive in there. We're trying to leave it behind. So we have to understand that our automatic reactions that feel right are actually preventing us from getting to our goal, which is the disconnection. That's why it's hard for us to unwrap that. It's like, it feels like the right thing. It sure does. And it was. And sometimes it still is. But it may not be now. It may be now that we have to, like me with my wife and her, it's like that situation is out. The son is out of the house. I don't have to deal with that. She still has that problem. She still has that wrapped up. But I know how to not trigger it. And if she says something, I know how to respond to it. I know now where she's coming from. So I can manage it in a way that it's no longer personal and it no longer touches my ego. It's no longer about me. I now manage it in a way that she's like, honey, I love you and how well you understand. It turned around that way. But it took me really dropping that ego and understanding I was packing what belonged with this. I was adopted by John Paulson. I was, after Larry hung himself and all the things going on, I was a very angry kid. There were a lot of issues. It became, I became very stubborn. I was not passing school either, all the same things, but for different reasons. I was being driven by something instead of being handed something. I was being pushed to go somewhere. The life experiences were different. Eventually, I mean, in the background, I realized I'm looking for, Larry hung himself to go to heaven. Where did he go? In the background, that's always there. That might be the primary drive of where I got. Where did Larry go? And he might just be dead after suffering, which gives me an empathy for humanity that is so significant it's hard to turn that off, knowing that if that's the plight of billions and trillions, then boy, how sad. We need to find ways to enjoy and love life and love one another. That's what's happiness. Whatever happened, if there's an afterwards, you still want now to be happy, right? We do. All of us do. I'm just talking in general terms here now. Anyway, so I think that whether it's intentional or not, it doesn't matter. The person, if they dig at you and you go, quit it. If you stop, at some point they'll be like, okay, that's not working anymore. They might try something different. Your response is a part of the completing process, the cyclical process. They're in a cycle, then you're in a response. Then they're in a cycle, then you're in a response. So that's going to happen again and again until one of them ceases. The other one is still going to be in a cycle, but if you stop responding to it, they will. Even if they keep it up, it won't. At some point, you're like, it doesn't even matter to me. It won't impact you in any way, shape, or form personally. And typically, by that time, the other person's going to be like, oh, okay, that's not working anymore. And you'll have learned something and grown. Again, I don't know what the nature of it is or how severe it is. It sounds like it's something that's manageable anyway. But stuff like that is tough when you're involved in it daily. Standing outside of it, yep, here's what I would do. This is what is happening. And you're involved in it. You're like, oh, man, I got a lot of feelings involved in this. I got hurt. I got emotion. I got tears. There's a different investment. That's what makes life difficult, that feeling, the emotions. That's what we live through. That's what makes this process so difficult. We have to understand the memory and the pain was what we needed in place to evolve with. We needed that for our safety. We needed to remember what was good and what was bad, what killed us and what helped us survive, what to fear and what to love. That was incredibly important as part of evolution. And that's the mechanism that we're using to live life through. So it feels incredibly powerful when it's like, yeah, bunch of animals growing up. Glad you made it through there. Yeah, me too. Come on, let's go. That's behind us now. But you have to have somebody to talk it out with. My wife has been wonderful that way. She, despite not being on the path in the same way, understands what I'm doing. And she's my sounding board for many things. Sometimes she says, you should record this. And sometimes she says, I don't understand what you just said for the last half hour. As I'm going off into the other things, bringing in other stuff, the comparisons between Greek or, Hindu or something like that. Those become kind of foreign ideas. Yeah. What am I going on about? Yeah, this is a tough video. I'm not sure. Does it make sense? I'm just blabbering at this point. I'm forgetting the topic because it's just. Yeah, for me, I would balance all of those things out, the importance of it, and whether it's something that is impacting us currently because it is happening currently, or it's impacting us currently because it happened one time and it didn't get resolved and it needs to be resolved. Those get handled in different ways. They're different things. And I know you get that. The present is present. But if the past is present, then that's a problem. If you're caught up in something that you have to resolve, then you might have two steps. You get rid of that, then you find out why you were caught up in it, and you got to still heal the mechanism of why you fit with it to begin with, so you don't go on and have another experience with somebody down the road that's still teaching you the same thing. It's like, hey, you're still here. You got this. So you resolve that stuff, it quits. It's not easy when you're in it. Yeah, and you're with people that don't get that. So you're learning things that they're not learning, and you're understanding things that they're not understanding. But at the same time, your ego is going to be just as big. So you got to know that and start working with that to tame it down, to understand what it's doing. I'm not going to get rid of ego. You just understand when ego is forcing you to be right. And I'm not sure if that's it. More sometimes it's fear. I think the times that I needed to be right the most, when I wasn't right, when I was just lying, but I was trying to be right, it was at the core, not because of ego, but because of fear of something. Shame, wanting to hide something. I didn't want people to know something about me. That's when you get the most intense. I need to wrap this up, don't I? I'm not quite sure. You see, if I'm interpreting, I get into the interpretation. I can tell you what to do. When it comes to how to do it or which parts to apply, or, what does it mean to leave the past behind? Does it mean to leave the memory, or does it mean to leave the situation? Yes. It can mean anything. You have to look at your life and apply it to you. It depends on what's it doing. What's the severity of it? How bad is it impacting you? Is it something that you have to make sure is gone from your life, or is it something that you must rectify in your life? Those are different. Whether it's intentional or not doesn't matter. If it's intentional, the person's got that wired in. It looks intentional because they're acting like it's intentional, but what they're doing is they're just acting out their programming and calling it from the conscious level their intention, when really they're being driven from something inside. And like all of us, they're idiots enough to think that they're in charge of that when they're not. It's our insides coming out. Their insides are emerging. There isn't any intention. What there is no intention. There's no control. There's no awareness, self-awareness, or recognition that that's going on the other person's part, but there is on your part. So that is what puts you in the driver's seat. That's what gives you the edge, but you have to extract yourself no matter what that takes. The hardest part is going to be, you're going to be at some point thinking your feelings are hurt because the other person's going to be smug thinking that they got something. When you need to continue to practice getting outside of yourself so you don't feel that way. You should feel smug knowing that they're going to be doing that, and you know exactly you've got a perimeter outside of where they're going to be already mentally. And you see them doing exactly what you know they're going to do. So instead of following them, you're watching them do exactly what you know that they are stuck doing. When they trigger us, we're responding to effect. When we stop, it's because we understand the cause. Understand the cause of what they're doing and the cause of your response. And that knowledge will cause them to be looked at in a different way by you. If you're looking to heal them, if you look at the causes and you want to complain about them, that won't help. If you look at the causes and go, oh, here's what happened. Their parents did this. That caused them to believe this. Now they think that. Now they're acting out. Oh, I get it. Okay. That's what we're looking to do. Not place blame, but to look at where it came from and then to understand, oh, this isn't about me. I'm just programmed along the way, and I need to know that because I can escape my programming if I know that it's my thinking that did so to begin with. But anyway, we're still caught back up into that. Getting outside of it, getting to the higher self, living from that detached part more and more and more, practicing doing that while looking at the person, looking at the situation, looking at the trigger. Look at it from that outside part instead of from the part, the memory, the experiencer. Don't take it into your conscious mind from your memories and observe it. Observe it from the higher self and observe an interaction between two humans out there that are evolving up through something. And that one of those wants to rise up higher, and that's you. You got to see it from there to find it easier to get there. Instead of just saying you got to, it's like, here's why. There's a reason for it. It's important to you. When you make it yours. Okay, that's all I have to say on it. I hope I didn't make any recommendations. I'm not. I don't know what the situation is, and I know that they differ. And I know that some people probably need to work things out, and other people need to get away from each other. But that's not my decision to make. But you see in my life what I have done. I have gone through stages. And in those stages, not knowing any different, I started another life and thinking this is what I'm supposed to do. Only later do I go, wow, boy, I wish I'd seen something more growing up than just Western civilization. I wish I didn't learn what life was about by watching Leave It to Beaver and the Brady Bunch. Those are fine, but that's not all. But it makes you go, oh, that's what life is supposed to be like. I'm supposed to somehow fit this mold. And then God, it doesn't. Those are made up. It takes us a long time to figure out we're living through things we made up. Well, they're from experiences. They're memories and emotions of our experiences. Oh, I don't need to go there. Okay, as far as triggering, yeah, that's what I have to say on that. And something I would like to emphasize here on this video is that despite the fact that this ancient material is getting here, that there is modern material. I'll post a link below to a channel called Therapy in a Nutshell. And if you go to her channel and in that little, the search part where the little magnifying glass is, click on that and then just type in trigger and search. And she has a bunch of short videos up on triggers, how PTSD, different. She has current information. I've said before, if Buddha taught in plain language and modernity, this is what he would sound like her. And I would recommend, instead of just listening to me and understanding that is what the ancient material is getting to, they had a simpler life and time, and we are in modern times still trying to do the same thing, and there are modern techniques and modern knowledge. I recommend her channel highly. All right. I hope that helps. And thanks for the question, Stefan, once again, and everyone else. I hope it was helpful to you as well. See you in the next video.